But that wouldn't be ethical, would it?
Well, that's why I thought he might be a good person to ask.
There wasn't many questions. I think they were in a hurry at the end. There wasn't many questions at the end, isn't it? Very few.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Lunch and Learn. I'm sorry that we started so late, but unfortunately, I was having technical issues, and I'm still having technical issues. Everybody say yay! Okay, so let's dive straight into it. We're going to be talking about Parshat Yitro. So Parshat Yitro is a big parsha because it is all about the giving of the Torah. In this week's parsha, we're going to be reading about the Jews at Mount Sinai. But first of all, we're introduced to a man called Yitro. Yitro was Moshe's father-in-law, and we hear about how he's heard about all of these amazing things that are happening to the Jewish people, coming out of Egypt, all the miracles, the plagues, the punishments against the Egyptians, the splitting of the sea. He's hearing about all of this. He's perhaps even hearing about the giving of the Torah. Okay, chronologically, this beginning piece might be happening after the giving of the Torah, but either way, hearing about Yitro coming to join Moshe and coming to join the Jewish people. One of the amazing things that we learn about Yitro is the microphone still good, by the way?
A bit. You keep moving it down.
Do our best. So one of the amazing things about Yitro is he had apparently become a master of several religions throughout his lifetime. And he eventually kind of comes across Judaism or buys into Judaism, whatever it might be. But this is not some wandering sheep. Yitro is a very accomplished minister. He was actually the priest in Midian. He was a minister in Midian. So he's a well thought out guy, well thought in the sense that he has progressed through many different religions, if you want to call them that, and he is now coming to join the Jewish people. And one of the things that he tells Moshe is, you're going to burn out, Moshe. You're doing too much. You're handling everyone's questions, and that's not an ideal way to set up a system of leadership. So he encourages Moshe to appoint people who are going to be underneath him, who are going to take the questions of the people, and only he will deal with like the big shilas, but he's going to have judges and leaders underneath him who are going to in the main tackle the day-to-day mundane questions that people might have, because it's just going to be too exhausting if he's having to handle everything by himself. So that is the beginning of the parsha, hearing about Yitro joining the Jewish people. And then we hear about the Jewish people standing at Mount Sinai. We talk about how they were so united and how they were so at one with each other. It was the most united time of the Jewish people. That's why the verse says Vayichan Sham. In the singular, it says that the Jewish people camped around Mount Sinai, but it says it in the singular instead of the plural, because this was a moment of extreme Jewish unity. Everybody together with one heart, one focus, one kavanah. They were all in it together. And then they hear the Ten Commandments, which we all know and love. And that in a nutshell is this week's parasha. One little observation to make. We talk about how the Ten Commandments are divided up into two groups of 5. The first 5 are commandments that take place in the realm of man and his relationship with God, and the second 5 are commandments that are about man's relationship with other people. So if you take a look yourselves at those 10 commandments, cut them in half, and see how they split up between man and God, you notice that the commandment of Kibbud Av V'Aim, my dad's favorite commandment, honoring your father, and your mother, that is actually on the side of man and God. It's not on the side of interpersonal relationships, which is a fascinating thing. It requires much reflection and much thought. Perhaps one of the fundamental concepts that we're being encouraged to understand in that commandment is that actually, with regards to a relationship between a child and his parents, it is also about the relationship with Hashem as well, to realize that there are three partners in every in the production of a child. That's what the Gemara tells us. There's the father, there's the mother, and there's Hashem. They each play a very important role in the production of a child, and so that starts the thinking process as to why that particular commandment makes it into the top 5 of man and God commandments, and not just man and man. Anyway, that's Parashat Yitro. Do we have any questions? Yes, we do. We've got Rita on line 1.
Because I didn't hear it that well. Do you mean that Yitro was converted to Judaism? Was his last religion Judaism? Or was he? Was he?
I believe so.
Was he born? He wasn't born Jewish.
He wasn't. No, he wasn't born Jewish. No, not at all. In fact, there's a source that says that he was one of Pharaoh's lead advisors in Egypt.
Yeah.
And when Pharaoh wanted to kill off the Jewish babies, he actually said, "I'm out," and he left Egypt at that point and went to Midian. So no, he was certainly not Jewish when he was born. And my understanding is that he did convert to Judaism and he did join the Jewish people. Although we read later on in the Torah that he actually leaves the camp and he goes off on his own way. But I do believe that his last decision was Judaism, if I'm not mistaken.
Thank you.
I really do apologize. I don't know what's happened to my tech issue here. But is it? I'm seeing some heads shaking. Is it really difficult to hear it on the microphone?
No, it's just shaking a bit. It's just a little. There's a slight bit of interference, but it's okay. We can hear you well now.
I can try a different set.
Crackly,
I mean, I'm hearing all kinds of things in my ear, so I can appreciate that it's not easy.
There is some interference, like the buzzing noise occasionally.
Sorry. Doing my best with the tech that we have. A bad workman blames his tools. Okay, let's get it up on the screen. You can always watch it back on YouTube. I'm sure the quality will be far better there. Okay. We are going to go with Mishnah 10 on the screen. In my books, you may find it chapter 4, Mishnah in 12. So if anyone wants to read for us Mishnah 10 on the screen, or not, maybe no one can hear me.
Engage but little in business, and busy yourself with the Torah. Be of humble spirit before all men. If you have neglected the Torah, you shall have many who bring you to neglect it. If you have neglected the Torah, you shall have many who bring you to neglect it. But if you have labored, it's gone.
Oh, got it there?
But if you have labored at the study of Torah, there is much reward to give unto you.
Wow, okay, so we're going to have to do some work on this Mishnah, and we're going to have to take a look at these translations a little bit. So Rabbi Meir Omer. Rabbi Meir says, what does he say? He says, Heve mema'et ba'esek va'asok ba'torah. So, Joy, is the sound not good?
It's crackling.
It's very crackly, so your words are being muffled by the crackles that are coming with them.
Okay, just give me 1 second. I'm going to switch to a different pair of headphones. Is that's still not better?
That's a bit better, yes.
Oh, dearie me. I'm so sorry, everyone.
That's better.
All right.
It's actually a bit better.
Okay.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Lunch. Okay, so we're in this Mishnah here on the screen, Mishnah 10. Rabbi Meir Omer, Rabbi Meir says, Heve mama'et ba'esek va'asok ba'torah, that we should, it says here, engage but little in business and busy yourself with the Torah. It's not a perfect translation as I might have liked. Mamayit means to reduce. So in my version here, I've got reduce your business activities and engage in Torah study. And we need to understand what that all means. The next point in the Mishnah is Veheve shafal ruach bifnei kol adam. That you should be, this is a pretty good translation on the screen, be of humble spirit before all men. Ve'im batalta min Torah, if you have neglected the Torah, yesh lacha batelim harbe kenegdacha. So it says here on the screen, you shall have many who bring you to neglect it. I have a version here that says that you will have excuses to neglect it. Yesh lacha batelim harbe kenegdacha. There will be enough going on that you come to neglect it. Ve'im amalta b'Torah, and if you labor and if you engage in the Torah, then yesh lo sachar habe liten lach. Then there is much reward coming to you, much reward that Hashem will give you. So, does anyone want to comment before we look at some of the insights on this?
It's a very easy one for me.
Maybe you're just getting better at this.
Yeah, I'm getting better at this. No, sometimes I don't understand it, but this one is quite easy. You know, don't get too much involved into what you're doing, but get busy with learning the Torah. And if you do that, you'll be rewarded.
Mm-hmm.
The way it says.
I just realised that no one in the world can hear what you're saying, but
We can. We heard it.
no,
Yes, we
no,
heard.
but on YouTube and
Oh.
Facebook. But then I realised no one's watching anyway. So
I think that the second sentence, be of humble spirit before all men, doesn't seem to have much connection to the other sentences in it. So I'd be interested to know
What
where
it's
that
doing
fits
there.
in.
Yeah.
an acute observation.
We've had this
Perhaps
theme
you're right.
before, though.
Perhaps we just haven't found the connection.
We've also had this theme before. I remember reading this before as well.
So we've not had it in its exact replicated form, but yes, this is an emergence
Yeah.
or re-emergence of themes that we've talked about in the past. 100%.
I think the bit that I got confused with, because I think the wording is pretty poor. I think what is it saying that there'll be plenty of things put in your way to stop you spending time studying Torah.
That's certainly one of the levels of interpretation.
If you have neglected the Torah, you shall have many who bring you to neglect it. Is it saying there'll be, I think that's the wrong way round. There'll be many opportunities for you to neglect the Torah, lots of hurdles put in your way, like, attractions that you feel you want to do. But
the first sentence is a bit strange. Is it telling you not to do anything in business?
No.
And work in the Torah? How are you supposed to earn money for yourself? How are you supposed to survive?
Fantastic.
I think it's saying go into business. I think the Torah right through says some of our greatest rabbis had jobs. Have a job, but don't let it consume you. Leave time for Torah study.
Seems to be saying, it seems to be saying engage. Well, it says engage, but little in business, if that's the right translation.
Yeah.
So let's start with that,
But
Peter.
they're just trying to that's just, to me, it's just a balance.
Yeah.
Engage but little in business and busy yourself with Torah. Get the balance right, that you do what you need to do in your business, but the overall balance should be but busy yourself with the Torah. So you can do both. You can do your business.
It doesn't say that.
I
doesn't say
agree
that
with
at all.
you, but it doesn't say that here.
So
It says engage but little in business and busy yourself with the Torah. So to me, you can still do business, but not at the expense of the Torah. So you can do it, but not. That's how I would read it anyway.
And I think the translation is wrong because it's It's the word is not too little. It's minimized. Do the least, make a living. And engaging in Torah, to my mind, doesn't necessarily, people think that means sitting down studying over a book.
Yeah.
Which it doesn't mean. It means engaging in Torah means doing other good work, means doing social work, looking after people, doing mitzvot. So it's saying, for people who stay in business their life and just accumulate money and achieve nothing by it, it's saying be wary of that.
Yeah, I think we need to get the translation a bit more accurate, because it's not giving us an awful lot, I think.
Yeah, so that's why I was going to say, Peter, that we should start from your point there, because it's not saying that one should not work. The words here of mema'et, be'esek, mean to reduce the amount of work. And I think the heart and the essence of this Mishnah is of the observation that the pursuit of business, the pursuit of profession, becoming a workaholic is an addictive route that pulls you away sometimes from the important things in life. I mean, let's ask this as a question. What drives people to become workaholics?
Money.
Money.
Power.
Power.
Yeah.
Achieve something.
The feeling of achievement.
Yeah.
And sometimes
poverty in their early life.
Pardon me, Gary?
History of poverty in their early life.
Okay, history of poverty in their early life. And I certainly appreciate what you're saying there, but if I can just spin it just a little bit, there's a point that I'd say there's a tipping point between someone who's working to earn money to support themselves and someone who is becoming the workaholic type, the person who leaves no time for anything else, the person who spends all their time in the office, away from the family, not getting pursue any other hobbies or make time for anything else. So there seems to be a difference between people who are able to work and to earn their living and to make a balance in their lives, and people for whom that's not a possibility. The point that I believe we're drawing from the Mishnah is that we have to find the balance. As with everything, we have to find the balance. We have to appreciate that the pursuit of money, the pursuit of
material
the
thing,
joy of the chase, the materialistic pursuits, whatever it might be, they can all become addictive. But if they become addictive and if they become all consuming, you never get to expand beyond there. And that's not necessarily a healthy way to conduct your life. Pushing off meaningful relationships until you reach a certain point in your life, that can end up biting people in the long run, because maybe it becomes too late for them to pursue the things that they were pushing aside in favor of a career or in favor of a certain amount of money or a certain amount of a target. It can backfire. What were you going to say, Joy?
I was just going to say there's a saying, isn't there, that you should work to live, not live to work.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. A very good one.
Yeah.
The Maharal from Prague makes an important point, and that's why it's important to mention what Peter was saying. He's not saying that we should reduce our work out of laziness or out of a fear of challenging ourselves or out of a fear of, what it might mean to have a career. That's not what it's talking about, but it's about finding what's important in life and learning to compartmentalize and learning to balance our priorities. And it's also not saying that you have to go.
You're fading, Rabbi.
Sorry. It's also not saying that you have to go cold turkey. It's saying to reduce. It's saying to reduce gradually. Peel away the intensity of an addictive work life and learn to balance. There's an amazing story that I remember. Oh, Rita, you got a question?
I'm just saying, a yeshiva bucher, a guy who's in the yeshiva and he wants to stay there for the rest of his life, he might take this literally, doesn't he? Don't get busy with business or get a little busy with business and just keep busy yourself with the Torah. So these yeshiva buchers are probably taking this as literally what it says in this Mishnah.
I can see your point, but
I know it's controversial, but there's people who study Torah all their lives and don't leave yeshivas.
yeah, I'm not sure it's as simplistic as they read this Mishnah and then they're like, oh, okay.
Well, I don't
Very
know.
often it seems to be more an outgrowth of the culture. So I think there's layers of complexity beyond just this particular Mishnah.
And I think maybe as well that in those days, whatever Rabbi Meir lived, they might have had a problem with people doing other things which they should have been doing. Maybe, I don't know what year this was, Rabbi Meir, I don't know the year was it. But maybe in those days, things, you know, they were going off the track.
Very often it's a comment on society. That's what we've seen a lot of times with these Mishnayot, that the rabbis sometimes have to take an extremely hard line or blunt way of expressing something in order to compensate for societal influences. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's
Look,
very
there
possible.
can I say, there are always, with any rule of thumb, and this is obviously sensible, don't spend your whole life in business accumulating money and not doing other good things. But there are always occasions, like now we have nurses and doctors who are working their heart out, haven't seen their families for weeks because they're in confined space. And but it's a Torah mitzvah what they're doing. There's always occasions when one can say this is wrong or this is right, but generally speaking, this can only be a good thing. You know, don't spend your whole life earning money, just earn enough to live comfortably and your needs, and then do some good with your life, do some good deeds, do something worthwhile other than earning money.
Perhaps that's the significance of the next part of the Mishnah then. Humbling ourselves before all men, realizing that we're not just in it to win it, in it to be on top of everyone else, in it to crush the competition. Somebody who's working round the clock because they're helping people's health, that's vastly different than someone who set themselves this life goal of being the CEO and crushing all of the competition underneath.
Yeah.
I think it's possible to balance both those parts. Somebody who's working round the clock, but from a place of humility, that's clearly, evidentially, a better, system than trying to do it to crush and oppress everybody else.
Where would it?
You're gonna. Oh.
Sorry, can I just ask where would it doesn't anywhere relate to your family or being happy? It just relates to work and Torah. What is there anything that's implicit in terms of spending time developing your family?
So I think he's not trying to prescribe people's life arrangements. I think he's trying to unravel a fundamental point of truth, which is when you peel away from the rat race and asok b'Torah, that doesn't necessarily mean just sit in the Beit HaMidrash and learn Torah, but it means that you are engrossed in having Torah values at the heart of your life.
Absolutely.
And that will involve family life, family planning, all those other important pursuits. I think that's a part of being engrossed with the Torah. I'm sure on one level as well, it means go and sit in a Beit Midrash, but the nugget of truth that pervades every area is the idea of not becoming addicted to business and profession and the pursuits of a career, but to realize that there are other priorities that we have to balance as well. So that's a good point. There's a story that I heard many years ago. Can everyone still hear me, by the way, with the mic?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a wonderful story. I can't remember if it's the Chafetz Chaim, but the story goes that there was a guy who worked as a herring salesman, struggling for money, trying to make ends meet. And he hears that there's an island far, far away where you can go and become super, super rich. They've got so much over there. And he makes this arrangement. He's going to go over to this island for a year. He's going to get all of these diamonds that are on the island, and he's going to be a rich man. So he embarks on his voyage and he goes to this island, and lo and behold, he pulls up at the shore, and everywhere, the whole beach is scattered with priceless diamonds and gems. And he gets so excited and he starts scooping them all up, and he's thinking to himself, I'll spend a year here, I'll accumulate all of these diamonds, and then I'll go back to my country and I'll be so rich. So he sweeps up a few pocketfuls of diamonds and he goes to the local shop to buy himself some food. And he walks in so proudly, pulls some stuff off the shelves, and the salesman tallies it all up, and he digs into his pocket, pulls out a couple of diamonds, and with this wonderful smile on his face, he throws the diamonds onto the table. And the salesman looks at him and says, shopkeeper says, what's this? So he says, I want to pay for this food. Here are all the diamonds. He goes, diamonds are worthless here. Over here, we trade in herring. And he's like, oh my gosh, well, good thing I'm an amazing herring salesman. So he starts going out, collecting herring, fishing for herring. He's able to go and buy himself some goods. He's able to get himself started. And over the course of that year, he builds up this amazing herring company. And by the end of the year, he's got barrels and barrels and barrels of herring. And he's thinking, I'm rich. I'm going to go back to my country with all of this herring, and my family are going to be so proud, and we're going to be so rich, and we're going to have everything in life. So he loads all of these barrels onto his brand new yacht, and he sets sail on his voyage back to his home country. And of course, as he arrives weeks later on the shores of his country, he takes all of these barrels down. His family are so excited to see him. So you've been on this island, you've got all of these riches, let's have a look. And they prise open the barrels, and inside is stinky, rotten fish. And his family are looking at him like, what's going on here? You were supposed to bring back diamonds, and all you've been doing is trading in herring. So the moral of this story, of the parable, is that we come down into this world and we're here to collect the diamonds, the mitzvot, and we spend our lives collecting herring and investing all of our time and all of our effort in things that ultimately are not important and ultimately don't give us the merit and the spiritual currency that we need. And maybe we'll come back with a few diamonds in our pockets, a few mitzvot here and there, but in the main, we may have directed our attention in all of the wrong places. So I don't know. I like that story. Pardon me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, this is why Shira should teach Lunch and Learn. She's making a very important point. That again, it's not just about sitting in the study hall, but it's realizing that everything that we do and everything that we touch and every little part of our lives, ultimately, they go to building up this diamond stash, this diamond collection. And as Shira was saying, even things that are as mundane as eating and drinking and exercise and whatever it might be, it's all there to fuel our bodies in order to do more things and to do more good deeds and to do more mitzvot. Let's just try and hurry up with getting some more nuggets out of this mission. I wanted to do 2 today, but we'll see if we've got the time. So the other truth that comes out of this Mishnah is that the more distractions you have, it's only going to bring about more distractions. So that seems to be the thrust of the last part of the Mishnah here. In batalta min hatara, yesh lacha batelim harbe kenegdecha. If you neglect the Torah, you're going to have plenty of excuses. Plenty of things are going to come up to keep you even more distracted. Distraction begets distraction. So if we don't prioritize the important things in life, so first of all, we're going to be too distracted from those important things, from our families, from interactions with others, the mitzvahs that we can do. So if we are focusing on the wrong things, there'll be plenty of excuses as to why we couldn't focus and why we couldn't get round to doing the things that were actually important to us. We talked in the past about im ein ani li mili. We said in the very beginning of Pirkei Avot, if I am for myself, if I'm not for myself, what are the words?
If I am for me,
if I'm not for myself, who will be for me? If I'm only for myself, what am I? And if not now, when? So if we don't have the right balance of important things, when we're going to find, if not now, when? If I don't actually get on with these things, then I'm never going to get around to them. There's a famous piece of Talmud that talks about when we go upstairs and we're going to be asked, you know, did we have a focus, have a Torah focus in our lives? Granted, the actual piece in the Talmud talks about, did we make time to learn Torah? But it's the same principle applied to everything. So they say, well, one guy will come and say, oh, I wasn't able to because I was, you know, I was too poor. I was too poor to be able to do any of these things. And then the heavenly court will say, well, were you as poor as this particular individual? I think it's Hillel, maybe. You know, Hillel was so poor, but yet so devoted that he almost froze to death trying to fight for his ability to learn Torah. And another guy might say, well, I was too rich. I was too busy with my business. And the heavenly court will say, well, were you as rich and were you as busy as I think Rabbi Judah the Prince, who commanded a whole fleet of ships and had this whole big import and export company and so much money, and nonetheless he was able to make time. So the point that emerges here is that we can have our excuses and we can say that this is not the right configuration to be able to do the things that I want to do. But the point is that if we were to really introspect and think about it, then we'd realize that we can make time. I mean, I always talk about how I never get time to exercise. And when I talk to people who do exercise, they always say to me the same thing. If it was important to you, you would make time for it. And I don't. And I keep telling myself that it's very important to me, but I just can't do it. I just don't have the time. But fundamentally, we know it's true. Anything that is really important, if we wanted to, if we had the right drive, then we would do it. But we get distracted, and that distraction leads to other distractions. And that's why we don't actually do those things, which fundamentally are important, and we know they're important, but we let distractions get the better of us. So that's all I have to say on that Mishnah. I don't know if we can get a second one in. No, I think we're going to have to leave the second one for next week. So let's open the floor for comments and questions.
Remember, as we're opening the floor, there's I don't know whether it's a midrash, but there was a very lovely, bearing in mind this, of a chap visiting an island again and seeing a man sitting on the shore, just wasting away his time. He did a bit of fishing in the morning and he sat and he ate the fish and he lazed away all day. And after 3 or 4 days, the chap went down to him and said, "What are you doing, wasting your time like this?" He said, "Well, what do you want me to do?" He said, "Well, if you went out for more hours, you could sell more fish, and then you could buy a boat, and you could go out for all day, and you could bring back." And he said, and you could become very wealthy. He said, "And what would I do when I was wealthy?" He said, "Well, you could then sit on the beach and do nothing and eat fish." So I think this mission is saying, just don't waste your time just earning money and not doing anything good with it. I think that we always seem to miss the point, or some people do, that busying yourself with Torah doesn't mean sitting learning words. It means doing actions. It means doing decent things. And that's what I think this is saying. You know, don't just work all day long, but use some of your time for being a decent person and helping others and doing Torah, other mitzvot.
I was just
Beautifully put. Beautifully put. And if I can just add on the tagline almost at the end there, we don't appreciate how much reward and how important it is for us to actually get these priorities right and to get these mitzvot performed and to live in that way. It's very true what you're saying.
And why do you think that is?
Why do you think we don't appreciate it?
Why do you think so many people don't do the things that are said here? I mean, if you take it literally, engage but little in business, busy yourself with the Torah, that is what it says. And I think everything you've said to go around it has been absolutely marvelous. But if you come back to the core of what you've got here, it is not relevant to where most people are coming from. If you said to most people, have you sufficient for your family and your children? Actually, you know what? Even if you have got sufficient, could you please do a little bit less business and a bit more Torah study? Surely this is not fundamentally relevant. Now you're going around it with all the other things you said. I absolutely agree. And the guy on the island and the guy on the other island I liked as well. But that's not what this says.
It is. I think
No, it's not. No, it's not. It's what you think. No, Martin. It is what you interpret it as being.
That's what we do with all words and language. We interpret.
And I take what the rabbi is interpreting as saying. And it is impossible to disagree with both of you, except fundamentally, you've got to sort of read what it says. And it doesn't say, it doesn't even mention islands here.
Is that why the world is in such a terrible state? Because we haven't observed what the Torah tells us to do. That there's so much greed, there's so much accumulation of wealth and not doing the right thing, and it's, you know, and that's why we've got these awful diseases and things, perhaps because we haven't observed the rules.
I think that's a little bit of a jump.
Well, it is a jump.
Because you've got to come back to the one you're studying, and the one you're studying says quite clearly, engage but little in business and busy yourself with the Torah. And I think that's exactly what the Rabbi there said and exactly what Rabbi there meant. And I don't have a problem with it.
He may be meant.
It's a very quick lunch and learn session, or a very quick shir to read this mission and say, right, everyone, pack your bags, off to the Beit Midrash, off to the yeshiva, whatever it might mean. This has to be words that we can read and that we can actually find the psychological insight that is driving Rabbi Meir to make this point. But we could read all of these things and say, well, the solution to all of it is close yourselves off, open up a Chumash, open up a Gemara, and don't do anything else with your day.
And
I'm
that
not
may
going to
be what
stop you,
Rabbi
Paul.
Mears meant.
I'm
But
not
that
going to
may be
stop
what
you,
he
Paul.
meant.
That might be certainly the plain level, but this has to be words that are relevant through the thousands of years after he says it, and the millions of Jews who are encouraged to study it. We don't say only people who are sitting in a Beit Midrash should read Pirkei Avot. And if you go through all of the subsequent works of commentary and books that have been written in a way to help people grow in the situations that they find themselves in, you find that everyone is talking about a work-life balance. In the main, we don't say in Judaism that the only way to live your life is to sit in a study hall and learn. There is a balance. There is a need to support a family. I mean, there's biblical commandments to have a family. How are you ever supposed to have a family if you're sitting all day studying? So the 613 mitzvot, there's not only one of sitting and learning. There's hundreds of commandments in the Torah and thousands of halachot that are learned from these mitzvot. There's a whole chunk of Jewish law which is about how to balance and work in a business setting according to halacha. So it's just a bit simplistic if we read it and we say, busy yourself with the Torah, end of, nothing else to say. There are layers of truth to this that cover more areas than just Torah study. Asok b'Torah, on the one hand, yes, it means to immerse yourself and busy yourself with Torah study. But it doesn't say Torah study, does it? It doesn't say limud Torah. It says b'Torah. Torah is more encompassing than that. It covers more areas. And I think that's what everybody in here is trying to plumb the depths of and realize what it can mean to live by the Torah and not just to sit and study the Torah. That's what I think.
The thing here is that where it's difficult is that the first sentence is very easy for a person who accepts that life or that proposition, but it's very difficult for the people who don't. And that is where the thing is, that the world is going wrong. And that's unfortunately where we haven't managed to capture the essence of that sentence. And whether you can ever capture it, whether you can ever get people to do it, that's the difficult bit.
And that's why it's broader. And that's why I think one of the big truths that we're talking about here is that Rabbi Meir and Judaism realize that to devote yourself exclusively to a career has a detrimental impact on everything else that you want to be able to get out of life and on everything else that is available for you to get out of life. So it has to be broader. It has to encompass all of these things. Otherwise, people will just read it and be like, okay, that's his opinion. Nothing in it for me. But we have to find the parts that are in it for all of us because these are meant to be eternal truths. That's what I think.
Rabbi.
That's fine.
Hello, David.
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you.
Think David about it. You say something.
So, can you hear me, guys? Sorry.
Yeah.
So I think this is something talking about the balance of life between a purely physical experience of life and a spiritual experience of life. And I think it's stating simply not dogmatic, but a basic principle rather than the literal meaning of the word.
Expand on that a bit.
Well, because we're not only physical beings and have to eat and earn money and enjoy ourselves. We also have a soul, and we are spiritual beings. And the balance that we have to live our life is between our physical and our spiritual.
Yes.
So
Yes.
the principle is that we devote sufficient time to both those aspects of our life according to how we run our life. But we should not neglect one or the other.
Mm.
A very good and astute point as well. And in fact, when we come to the next Mishnah, which we're now going to have to do next week, we're going to talk more about the spiritual impact of our actions. And that's why it's so important. It's a very good mantra for us to live by, to realize this last line of this Mishnah, Yesh lo schar harbeh, that there is so much in store spiritually for one who pursues a life of good deeds. So we'll come to that again next week, David, and hopefully you'll be able to tune in and give us more insights. But for now, that's all we've got time for on the recording. I am fed up of having to hear myself speak in my ear, so I'm going to stop the recording, and we will continue with our after party here on Zoom. But for now, let's wish everybody a wonderful, meaningful day and a Shabbat Shalom for when it comes. And don't forget, chicken soup tonight with the Feldmans. So we look forward to seeing you all soon. Take care.
Thank you. Shabbat